Picture this. It's a random Tuesday evening, somewhere around 8 o'clock, and the glow of your phone screen is the only light in your apartment. You're sitting on the edge of your bed, staring blankly at an email from your mechanic. The subject line is casual, almost polite, but the body of the email contains an estimate that makes your stomach instantly drop to the floor. $800. Maybe it's a blown transmission, or maybe it's a surprise medical bill that insurance decided they just aren't going to cover. Whatever it is, the number is sitting right there, glaring at you, demanding money you simply don't have. The apartment is completely dead quiet. There isn't a roommate shuffling in the kitchen, and there isn't a partner walking through the door to share the burden. It's just you and the low hum of the refrigerator. In that exact moment, your heart rate starts to climb. You do the frantic mental math of your checking account, instantly calculating what bills are due on Friday, and wondering if you can somehow stretch $20 for groceries until the end of the month. Your thumb instinctively hovers over your contacts app. It's human nature to look for a lifeline when you feel like you're suddenly drowning. You scroll through the names, looking for someone, anyone who might be able to help. But as you pass the names of acquaintances and casual work friends, the reality of your situation sets in like a heavy concrete block resting on your chest. There is absolutely no one to call. There's no bank of mom and dad waiting to wire you $500 just to tide you over. You don't have parents who can silently slip a check into your coat pocket when you visit them for Sunday dinner. You don't have an uncle with a spare car you can borrow for a few weeks while yours sits in the shop gathering dust. You think about your coworkers who casually laugh about still being on their family cell phone plans at 30 years old. You think about the friends who talk about how their parents helped them with the down payment on their first home, calling it a small loan they'll eventually pay back. You nod and smile when they tell those stories, but deep down, a quiet, isolating resentment bubbles up. They have no idea what it actually feels like to walk on a tightrope with no net underneath. If they fall, they bounce off a trampoline woven from generational support and parental guilt. If you fall, you hit the concrete, hard. This is the absolute, terrifying reality of playing the financial game in what I call single-player mode. It isn't just about the money itself. It's about the heavy, invisible psychological backpack you have to wear every single day of your life. Every single decision you make carries a microscopic level of dread. Getting a bad case of the flu feels like a financial emergency, because there isn't a dual income to cover the rent if you miss a week of work. A weird rattling noise in your car isn't just a minor inconvenience. It's a potential catastrophe that could completely derail your entire year. You're constantly braced for an impact you can't afford. You sit there on the bed, feeling a wave of sheer, unadulterated exhaustion wash over you. It's that deep bone-tired weariness that comes from knowing you're 100% responsible for your own survival. There isn't a backup parachute hidden in the closet. If you don't figure out how to pay this $800 bill, it simply doesn't get paid. The late fees will hit, your credit score will drop, and the cycle of scraping by will just get tighter and tighter. You toss your phone onto the mattress and rub your eyes, wondering how you're ever supposed to actually get ahead and build real wealth when it feels like a stiff breeze could completely wipe you out. How are you supposed to invest for the future when the present is demanding every single dollar you have right now? The silence in the room gives you no answers. Just the terrifying reminder that it's entirely up to you. If that sounds perfectly familiar, you're absolutely not alone. The crushing weight of having zero financial backup is a silent, creeping epidemic in our modern world. It's the kind of stress people rarely talk about. At dinner parties or around the office water cooler, there's a deep, completely unfounded shame that comes with financial isolation. You look around at your peers who are casually taking massive risks, quitting jobs they hate to travel, or starting speculative businesses. You watch them leap, and you wonder why you're so paralyzed by the fear of making a wrong move. Look, here's the truth. It isn't a lack of ambition holding you back, and it certainly isn't a lack of intelligence. It's the glaring absence of a safety net. Playing the modern financial game in single-player mode is inherently bone-deep, exhausting. Every single dollar you earn has to stretch to cover the exact same basic necessities of life that couples split down the middle. Every sudden emergency, every broken appliance, and every unexpected medical deductible falls entirely and squarely on your shoulders. Think about the sheer amount of mental energy it takes to constantly monitor your own survival. When someone has a supportive partner or access to family money, their brain's allowed to relax. They've got the cognitive bandwidth to dream, to strategize for the future, and to simply take a deep breath. When you're navigating the world entirely on your own, your brain's permanently stuck in a low-grade fight or flight response. You're constantly running exhausting background calculations in your head. You find yourself wondering if buying a nicer brand of groceries will jeopardize the electric bill, or if taking a modest weekend trip will completely ruin you if you get laid off next month. This constant, unyielding vigilance drains your mental reserves before you even drag yourself out of bed to start your workday. Yet, the world entirely ignores this reality. Society acts as if everyone's operating from the exact same starting line, wearing the exact same track shoes. Mainstream personal finance gurus will yell at you through your screen to just invest more of your income, skip the daily coffee, and hustle harder on the weekends. They shout these platitudes while completely ignoring the structural vulnerability of your specific situation. Hustling harder doesn't magically fix the fundamental fragility of being a party of one. It usually just makes you a very tired, incredibly stressed out party of one. Most conventional financial advice is secretly built for people who have a dual income household to lean on, or at the very least, a childhood bedroom they can retreat to. If things go completely sideways, you don't have a childhood bedroom to retreat to. You've got a binding lease with only your name on it and a property management company that doesn't care about your personal struggles. You're attempting to construct a massive building without any external scaffolding. To pull that off, you need an entirely different set of architectural blueprints. You must first understand that your constant feeling of financial exhaustion isn't a personal failure. It isn't a sign that you're bad with money or that you lack discipline. It's a completely rational, biological response to an incredibly demanding set of daily circumstances. You're carrying the full, unshared weight of an entire household on a single set of shoulders. In an economy that heavily penalizes solo living, the very first step to actually building lasting wealth as a single person without support is to stop beating yourself up for feeling tired. You've got to look at your situation objectively and acknowledge the brutal reality of the board game you're currently playing. You can't win if you refuse to see the board. Once you finally see the game clearly, you can stop punishing yourself for not keeping up with people who are playing on easy mode. You can stop playing by the outdated rules designed for people with hidden trust funds or dual incomes. Instead, you can start building an automated, emotionless system designed entirely to protect and elevate you. You need to understand that the exhaustion you feel isn't just in your head. The math is quite literally rigged against you from the moment you wake up. We live in an economy that was fundamentally designed from the ground up for the dual income household. When you try to navigate this landscape alone, you run straight into a wall of systemic financial penalties that most married people completely take for granted. Financial analysts have a specific name for this invisible burden. They call it the singles tax. This isn't a literal tax levied by the government, though we will get to that part in a minute. The singles tax is the massive financial premium you pay simply for the right to exist as an independent, solo adult in a modern city. To put this into perspective, let us look at the actual numbers. Recent studies by real estate and financial groups have calculated that living alone costs a single person an average of over $7,000 extra every single year compared to someone cohabitating. In expensive metropolitan areas, that penalty can skyrocket to over $24,000 a year. That is the price of a brand new car, quietly drained from your bank account every 12 months, just for being single. The biggest and most obvious culprit is housing. The math of renting is deeply hostile to the solo dweller. A one-bedroom apartment simply doesn't cost half the price of a two-bedroom apartment. Landlords charge a massive premium for the privacy of having your own front door. When a couple moves in together, their housing cost is instantly slashed in half, instantly freeing up hundreds or thousands of dollars for investments. You don't get that luxury. You pay the absolute maximum premium for shelter. Then you have to look at the fixed costs of simply running a household. The local utility company doesn't care if there is only one person sitting in the living room using the lights. You still have to pay the exact same baseline connection and delivery fees as the family of four next door. Your internet provider charges you $80 a month for a connection, regardless of whether One laptop or 5 devices are connected to the router. You absorb 100% of the baseline cost of modern living. Even the grocery store is engineered against you. Supermarkets price their goods to benefit volume buyers. The family pack of chicken breasts or the bulk bag of rice is significantly cheaper per pound than the single portions. As a solo shopper, you face a constant, frustrating dilemma. You either buy the cheaper bulk items and watch half of it rot in your fridge because you can't eat it fast enough, or you buy the smaller, single-serving packages and pay a massive premium per ounce. Both choices actively drain your wealth. Health insurance and medical costs carry a similar hidden penalty. Yes, you only pay the premium for one person, but if you face a high deductible, you're covering that entire out-of-pocket maximum from a single salary. If someone in a dual-income household gets sick, the other partner can pick up extra shifts or overtime to cover the gap. You have absolutely no labor buffer. Your ability to earn is your only shield against medical debt. Then there is the actual, literal tax code. For decades, the government has heavily incentivized marriage and child rearing through standard deductions, tax brackets, and specialized credits. The system was built to reward the traditional, nuclear family. As a single filer with no dependents, you are generally paying the absolute highest effective tax rate possible for your income bracket. The government takes their maximum cut before you even see your paycheck. This penalty even extends to how you try to relax. If you want to take a vacation to escape the grind, the travel industry hits you with the dreaded single supplement. Hotel rooms are priced for double occupancy. Cruise cabins charge you double if you travel alone. The world literally demands more money from you simply for attempting to rest and recharge without a partner. When you add up the housing premium, the utility baseline, the grocery waste, the travel penalties, and the tax disadvantages, a very clear, undeniable picture emerges. You aren't struggling because you buy too many coffees or because you lack discipline. You are struggling because you are running a financial marathon wearing a 20-pound weight vest that couples simply don't have to wear. Politicians and large corporations almost never talk about this reality. The nuclear family, or at least the dual-income household, is the default consumer unit in all of their financial models. You are essentially a statistical anomaly, an afterthought in a system designed to extract maximum value from groups. I'm not laying out this massive list of obstacles to depress you or to make you feel like a victim. I'm explaining this to completely validate your struggle. You need to internalize these numbers so you can stop trying to budget like a couple. You can't use normal financial advice because your situation isn't normal. You need a ruthlessly efficient, automated system designed specifically to survive and thrive in a world that overcharges you at every single turn. Here's what most people don't realize. The financial penalties of being single aren't just draining your bank account, they are actually rewiring your brain. When you spend every single day operating as the sole provider, the sole emergency contact, and the sole decision maker, you experience something psychologists call an extreme cognitive load. Cognitive load is simply the total amount of mental effort being used in your working memory. When you are financially isolated, your baseline cognitive load is perpetually redlining. Think of your brain like the battery on your smartphone. When someone has a dual income or a rich family to fall back on, their background apps are running pretty smoothly. They might have a few stressful tabs open, but their battery drains at a normal, predictable pace. Your brain is running the exact same operating system, but you have 50 survival apps open at the exact same time. You are constantly calculating, constantly worrying, and constantly bracing for an impact. Your battery is draining twice as fast before you even leave the house for work. This massive mental drain leads directly to something called decision fatigue. From the moment you wake up, every single choice rests entirely on your shoulders. You have no one to bounce ideas off of. You have no one to validate your spending choices or tell you that a certain purchase is a bad idea. Should you buy the cheaper car insurance with the higher deductible or pay the premium for peace of mind? Should you fix the strange noise the refrigerator is making or ignore it and pray it survives another year? When you process hundreds of these micro decisions completely alone, your brain simply gets tired. The prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain responsible for logical planning and impulse control, essentially clocks out for the day. This is why you can be incredibly disciplined at your job from 9 to 5, but completely cave and order $40 worth of takeout at 8 o'clock at night. The personal finance industry loves to call this a lack of willpower. They love to label it as laziness or poor impulse control. But it isn't a moral failure at all. It is a biological surrender. Your brain is so exhausted from carrying the existential dread of single survival that it forcefully demands a quick hit of dopamine to feel okay. It is seeking the path of least resistance because the friction of everyday life is simply too high. Compound this decision fatigue with what behavioral economists call the scarcity mindset. When you know you have no safety net, you naturally operate from a place of scarcity. You feel like there is never quite enough money, never quite enough time, and never quite enough security. Studies have proven that operating in a scarcity mindset actually drops your effective IQ by several points. Your brain physically changes how it processes information. When you feel financially vulnerable, your brain gives you severe tunnel vision. It hyper-focuses on immediate threats. It locks all of your attention onto getting through the next 2 weeks, paying the upcoming rent, and making sure the gas tank is full. Because all of your mental energy is focused on surviving the immediate present, you physically lose the capacity to strategize for the future. You literally cannot see your retirement 30 years down the road because you are driving through a financial blizzard and you are only looking 10 feet past the hood of your car. This leads to a psychological trap I call single compensation. Because you feel so deeply exhausted and so deprived of the structural comfort that others have, you start using money to buy small bursts of emotional safety. You might buy an overly expensive jacket or treat yourself to a lavish dinner alone. You are using spending to simulate the feeling of being taken care of. You are buying yourself the psychological hug that the world is refusing to give you. This is exactly why traditional budgeting spreadsheets and restrictive diets never work for the single person without support. They require you to use willpower at the exact moment. Your willpower battery is at 1%. They require you to sit down at the end of a grueling day and make more decisions. When decision fatigue has already completely compromised your logic, you cannot outsmart biology by simply trying harder. To actually break this cycle and build real, lasting wealth in single-player mode, you have to completely bypass your exhausted brain. You have to acknowledge that your cognitive battery is always going to run hot. If you want to survive, and more importantly, if you want to get rich, you have to build a system that requires absolutely zero willpower to operate. You have to remove the friction from saving and add massive friction to spending entirely automatically. This brings us to the very first rule of surviving and thriving in single-player mode. I call it building the titanium buffer. If you read any standard personal finance blog or pick up a generic money book, they'll tell you to save 3 to 6 months of living expenses for an emergency fund. That's perfectly fine advice for someone who's married, or someone whose parents would let them move back into their old bedroom if things got desperate. But for you, 3 months is a joke. 3 months is nowhere near enough runway when you're the sole pilot, navigator, and mechanic of your financial airplane. You have to recognize that your emergency fund serves a completely different psychological purpose than a married couple's emergency fund. For them, it's a convenient pool of cash to smooth out a bumpy month. For you, it's the literal replacement for a family safety net. It's your synthetic bank of mom and dad. Because of this, you need a cash reserve that's so obnoxiously large and defensive that it borders on paranoia. You need to aim for a minimum of 6 to 9 months of hardcore, bare-bones survival expenses. Let me explain exactly why you need that much cash sitting around doing nothing. When financial disasters happen, they almost never happen in isolation. They hunt in packs. You lose your job, and 2 weeks later, the transmission in your car drops. Or you get sick, miss 2 weeks of work unpaid, and then your landlord decides to hike the rent. When you have no partner to lean on, these compounding emergencies can completely wipe you out in a matter of weeks. The titanium buffer is designed to absorb a massive, multi-level catastrophic hit without you ever missing a night of sleep. Now, actually building a 6 to 9 month cash reserve sounds incredibly daunting, especially when you're paying the singles tax on everything you buy. If you try to build this using willpower, you'll fail. If you wait until the end of the month to see what's left over and try to manually transfer it to savings, you'll always find an excuse to spend it. Your exhausted brain will demand that dopamine hit of a dinner out or a new pair of shoes. You have to remove yourself entirely from the equation. You must fully automate the creation of this buffer. On the exact day your paycheck hits your primary checking account, you need a scheduled, automatic transfer that immediately pulls a set amount of money out. You don't wait to pay your bills. You don't wait to buy groceries. You treat this transfer exactly like a ruthless utility bill that'll shut off your electricity if it doesn't get paid. It happens in the background, entirely without your permission. The placement of this money is just as critical as the automation. Don't keep your titanium buffer in a savings account at the exact same bank where you have your checking account. That's a massive mistake. If you can open your banking app and see your emergency cash sitting right next to your spending money, the temptation to dip into it will eventually overwhelm your tired brain. You'll convince yourself that buying concert tickets is a mental health emergency. Instead, you need to open a high-yield savings account at a completely separate, online-only bank. You want to create geographic and digital friction. When your automatic transfer pulls the money from your main account, it vanishes into the ether. If you actually need that money for a genuine emergency, it'll take 1 to 3 business days to transfer it back. That artificial delay is your ultimate defense mechanism against your own impulse control. Once this system is set up, you stop looking at it. You just let the automated sweep do the heavy lifting week after week, month after month. Yes, it'll be slow at first. Yes, there'll be months where it feels incredibly frustrating to see hundreds of dollars leave your checking account and disappear into a vault you can't easily touch. But you have to trust the underlying architecture of what you're building. You're buying your own peace of mind, one automated transfer at a time. I want you to imagine the physical sensation of having 9 months of rent, food, and utilities sitting in an account that no one else can touch. Think about how that fundamentally changes how you walk through the world. When your boss sends a vague, passive-aggressive email on a Friday afternoon, your heart rate doesn't instantly spike. You don't panic about how you'll survive if you get fired on Monday. You just smile, knowing you could walk out the door and not worry about money until next year. That feeling right there is the ultimate goal of the titanium buffer. It isn't just about having money to fix a flat tire. It's about permanently lowering your daily cognitive load. When your brain finally realizes that you're genuinely safe, that you've built an unbreakable wall between yourself and ruin, your nervous system can finally relax. You stop operating from a place of desperate scarcity, and once you stop living in survival mode, you finally have the mental bandwidth to start building real, aggressive wealth. Now that you have built your titanium buffer, your defensive perimeter is secure. You have successfully engineered the artificial safety net that most people get from their families. But defense alone will not make you wealthy. To actually build lasting, a generational level wealth, as a single person, you have to transition to offense. However, because you are still operating with that massive cognitive load we talked about earlier, you cannot rely on willpower to execute this offensive strategy. You need a system that entirely bypasses your daily decision-making process. This brings us to the second rule of your automated system. I call it the phantom wealth funnel. To understand why this is so critical, we have to look at exactly what happens on payday. When your paycheck finally hits your checking account, there is a very brief, fleeting moment of relief. You look at the balance and feel a quick rush of dopamine. But almost instantly, that relief is crushed by the reality of your solo obligations. You mentally subtract the exorbitant single-person rent, the utilities, and the grocery bill. In that exact moment, your exhausted brain demands a reward. It looks at all the hard work you did to earn that money, and it looks at all the bills waiting to steal it away from you. And it practically screams for a consolation prize. This is exactly where the single compensation trap kicks in. You tell yourself that because you work so hard and bear all this weight entirely alone, you deserve to treat yourself to a nice dinner, a new gadget, or an expensive weekend out. There is absolutely nothing wrong with enjoying your life. The problem is that when you manually decide to treat yourself in the 24/6 heat of a stressful moment, you are prioritizing a temporary, short-term dopamine hit over your long-term financial freedom. If you wait until the end of the month to invest whatever is left over after, if you have treated yourself, you will always find that the leftover amount is exactly zero. Your brain will always find a way to spend whatever is sitting in plain sight. The phantom wealth funnel solves this completely by making your wealth invisible. The core philosophy here is that you cannot spend money that never officially exists in your working memory. You have to set up a structural routing system so that your investment money leaves your primary checking account before your brain even registers that you got paid. You have to hide your wealth from yourself. Step 1 is fully maximizing any automated workplace investments, like a 401k or a pension plan, where the money is stripped out before the paycheck even hits your bank. But workplace accounts are just the baseline. Step 2 is building the secondary funnel for your net pay. You need to open a dedicated investment account, specifically an index fund brokerage account that is completely detached from your daily banking ecosystem. On the exact same day your paycheck clears, before you have paid a single bill or bought a single coffee, an automated transfer must sweep a predetermined percentage of your income directly into that investment account. And here is the absolute most important part of the funnel. You must intentionally make this investment account incredibly annoying to access. Do not download the brokerage app on your phone. Do not save the password in your browser. You want to create a massive wall of friction between your stressed out brain and your growing wealth. If you have a bad day at work and want to rage, spend $400 on concert tickets, you should have to drag out your laptop, reset a forgotten password, and wait 3 business days for funds to settle before you can access that money. By the time you jump through all those hoops, the emotional urge to spend will have completely passed. The friction saves you from yourself. When you implement this funnel, you force a psychological shift in how you view your resources. Because the money vanishes instantly, your checking account always looks artificially low. Your brain adjusts to this new, lower baseline. You still manage to pay your rent and buy your groceries, but you naturally start skipping the unnecessary impulse purchases simply because the dashboard says you do not have the funds. You manufacture a sense of scarcity around your spending rather than your saving. Over months and years, this phantom wealth grows silently in the background. You do not have to think about it. You do not. You have to stress about picking the perfect stock or timing the market perfectly. You are steadily buying pieces of the global economy on autopilot. You are constructing a massive financial skyscraper while you simply go about your daily life, dealing with the normal stresses of your job and your solo household. By doing this, you are effectively acting as your own rich uncle. You are stepping in and forcefully paying your future self a mandatory tax before the world gets its hands on your money. The phantom wealth funnel completely neutralizes the single person spending trap because it removes the choice entirely. You do not have to be disciplined every single day. You only have to be disciplined once, on the day you set up the automated transfer. So now you have your titanium buffer standing guard and your phantom wealth funnel quietly building your future in the background. But we still have to address the massive elephant in the room. You still have to wake up every single day and pay the actual, literal costs of living in a world that overcharges you. You cannot simply ignore the massive premiums on your rent, your groceries, and your daily survival. To truly accelerate your wealth, you must implement the third rule of the system. I call this the singles tax evasion protocol. Do not worry. This has absolutely nothing to do with cheating the government or doing anything illegal with the IRS. This is about ruthlessly and structurally designing your daily life to dodge the invisible premiums that society charges solo dwellers. The goal here is to artificially replicate the financial efficiency of a 2-income household without actually needing a partner. You have to start by aggressively targeting the absolute largest drain on your wealth, which is the solo housing premium. You cannot use willpower to lower your rent once a 12-month lease is already signed. The money is legally committed. Therefore, you have to make a major structural lifestyle choice to break the math of the housing market. You have to be willing to do what most comfortable people absolutely refuse to do. The most mathematically powerful move you can make is what I call the temporary roommate sacrifice. I know, you are a grown adult and you want your own space. The idea of sharing a kitchen or arguing over whose turn it is to take out the trash sounds exhausting. But if you can swallow your pride and split a living space for just 2 or 3 short years, you create an absolute explosion of free capital. That money goes directly into your phantom wealth funnel, buying you years of future freedom for a small, temporary inconvenience. If getting a roommate is an absolute deal breaker for your mental health, which is a completely valid boundary, you have to use aggressive geographic arbitrage. This means intentionally stepping outside the highly marketed, high-convenience living zones. It means moving 15 or 20 minutes further away from the trendy downtown area. It means hunting for unconventional solo spaces that avoid the corporate pricing algorithms entirely. Corporate apartment complexes are literally engineered to extract the maximum possible singles tax. They bundle in mandatory valet trash fees, community amenity fees, and inflated pet rents because they know you are a captive audience. To evade this, you have to hunt for private landlords. You look for mother-in-law suites built over garages, basement apartments, in quiet neighborhoods, or older duplexes where the landlord just wants a quiet, reliable tenant and does not care about maximizing corporate profit margins. Once you have structurally reduced the housing bleed, you have to target the grocery and consumption penalty. We already established that buying single portions is a massive ripoff, and buying bulk usually leads to half the food rotting in your refrigerator. You cannot solve this problem while standing in the grocery store aisle trying to do math in your head. You have to build a system before you even leave your house. The protocol here requires standardizing your meals and automating your staple purchases. You remove the decision fatigue of figuring out what to eat every night by creating a strict, rotating menu of highly efficient, bulk-friendly meals. You cook massive portions on Sunday and freeze them in individual containers. You essentially become your own bulk buyer and your own private chef, completely eliminating food waste and drastically lowering your cost per meal. But you can take this even further by forming what I call consumption alliances. Find 1 or 2 other single friends who are in the exact same financial boat. You form a quiet, informal cooperative. You go to the warehouse club together, buy the massive 80-pack of toilet paper, the bulk laundry detergent, and the giant bags of rice, and you split them right there in the parking lot. You share the streaming service family plans. You share the warehouse club membership fees. It might sound incredibly granular, maybe even a little petty, to worry about splitting a bulk pack of paper towels with a friend. But this is exactly what the Singles Tax Evasion Protocol looks like in practice. It is about finding 100 different tiny leaks in your financial boat and systematically plugging every single one of them. You are neutralizing the systemic bleed that drains your accounts, $20 at a time. You also apply this to your utility bleed. You are only one person, which means you only occupy one room at any given time. You automate your energy efficiency. You program a smart thermostat to drop the temperature the exact minute you leave for work. You use localized space heaters or fans instead of trying to perfectly climate control an empty apartment. You stop paying to heat or cool empty space. When you combine the housing arbitrage, the consumption alliances, and the automated utility optimization, the results are staggering. You are effectively clawing back thousands of dollars a year from a system that was actively trying to overcharge you. You have taken the inherent financial advantages of a dual-income household and successfully engineered them for yourself. And every single dollar you save through this protocol gets immediately swept into your phantom wealth funnel, accelerating your escape velocity. So here is where the absolute magic happens. You have your titanium buffer protecting you from immediate catastrophe. You have your phantom wealth funnel quietly sweeping money away. And you have implemented the Singles Tax Evasion Protocol, ruthlessly clawing back the money that the world was trying to overcharge you for rent, food, and utilities. Now, we have to look at what actually happens when you take that clawed back money and inject it into the funnel. For someone playing in single-player mode, you have to understand that compound interest is your literal replacement for an inheritance. It is the wealthy partner you never married and the rich parents you never had. Compound interest is the only force in the financial universe that does not care about your relationship status. It only cares about time and consistency. Let us walk through an actual, undeniable mathematical example to show you exactly how this works. Let us say that by swallowing your pride and taking on a temporary roommate, splitting bulk groceries with a friend, and optimizing your utilities, you manage to stop the bleeding. You successfully claw back just $400 extra a month from the singles tax. In the grand scheme of the modern economy, $400 might not feel like a massive, life-altering amount of money. When you look at the price of real estate or the sheer cost of healthcare, finding $400 can feel like tossing a pebble into the ocean. Your exhausted brain will try to tell you that it is not enough to make a difference, so you might as well just spend it. But instead of listening to that fatigue, you let your phantom wealth funnel do its job. You automate that $400 directly into a broad market index fund, like the S&P 500, which historically averages around an 8 to 10% annual return over the long run. We will use a conservative 8% for this example. You do not check the account. You just let the automated system run. Fast forward 10 years. Over that decade, you have personally contributed $48,000 of your own money. But because of compound interest, your account balance is sitting at right around $73,000. It is a solid chunk of change. But you might still feel like you are just grinding away without making massive leaps. This is exactly where most people get impatient and quit. But if you hold the line and let the system run, you reach the inflection point. Fast forward to year 20. You have now contributed $96,000 of your own cash. However, your account has swelled to over $230,000. This is the exact moment your money takes on a life of its own. The interest you are earning every year is now generating more cash than your actual monthly contributions. Your money is officially working harder than you are. Now, let us push it to 30 years. The ultimate payoff for your quiet, automated discipline. Over 3 decades, you put in $144,000, but your account balance is sitting at nearly $600,000. And if you manage to claw back $800 a month instead of $400, that account would be sitting at well over $1.1 million. I want you to really think about what that means for someone who started with absolutely nothing. You did not marry into wealth. You did not wait around for a mythical rich uncle to pass away and leave you in a state. You did not win the lottery. You built a multi-$100,000 fortress out of thin air, using the exact same money that society was actively trying to steal from you through the singles tax. Time is the ultimate, undefeated equalizer. Yes, a dual-income married couple, you might be able to contribute more raw cash upfront and hit those massive numbers a few years faster. But the mathematics of compounding do not discriminate against you for being single. Once the money is in the market, it multiplies at the exact same rate. You have to completely reframe how you look at that saved money. Every time you optimize your grocery bill or bypass a corporate apartment fee, you are not just pinching pennies to survive the month. You are literally buying pieces of your own future freedom. Every single dollar you force into that phantom funnel becomes an invisible employee, working for you 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, completely insulated from the exhaustion of your single-player life. Now, you might be thinking, okay, this all sounds great on paper, but I literally have $0 left at the end of the month. You might be staring at your screen feeling a wave of absolute frustration, thinking that I don't understand how tight your budget actually is. You are already living in the cheapest apartment you can find. You are already skipping vacations, and you are already eating cheap meals. You are wondering where on earth you are supposed to find $400 to magically sweep into a phantom wealth funnel when your checking account hits 0 2 days before your next payday. I completely understand why you feel that way. When you are operating in single-player mode and carrying the full weight of your survival, being told to just save more money, you can feel incredibly insulting. It feels like you are drowning in the middle of the ocean and someone standing comfortably on a yacht is yelling at you to just swim a little bit faster. The sheer exhaustion of your current reality makes the math of that compounding example feel like a complete fantasy. But here is the trap your exhausted brain is falling into. When you are overwhelmed by the singles tax and the scarcity mindset, you default to all or nothing thinking. You tell yourself that because you cannot afford to invest $500 a month right now, there is absolutely no point in investing $5. You convince yourself that until you get a massive raise or somehow magically cut your rent in half, you are just going to have to stay stuck in the survival loop. That all-or-nothing mindset is the exact mechanism keeping you trapped. I need you to completely separate the architecture of your financial system from the mathematical amount of money flowing through it. Right now, your primary problem is not that you lack the money to invest. Your primary problem is that you do not have the structural plumbing in place to capture wealth when it finally does arrive. You have to build the fortress walls before you actually have the gold to store inside them. Think of it like laying down pipes for a massive farm. If you lay the pipes correctly, it does not matter if you only have a slow drip of water going through them at first. The infrastructure is firmly there. When it finally rains, or when you finally get that promotion, or when you finally execute a move to a cheaper apartment, the money will automatically flow exactly where it needs to go without you having to scramble to figure it out. So here is your specific challenge. I want you to completely forget about the massive investment numbers. I want you to forget about finding a roommate for right now. Over the next 24 hours, I am assigning you one single micro action that takes less than 15 minutes. Your only goal is to lay down the very first piece of plumbing for your titanium buffer. You are going to build the infrastructure, even if you can barely afford to use it. I want you to go to your computer and open a high-yield savings account at an online-only bank that is completely disconnected from your normal checking account. Do not do a bunch of exhausting research comparing interest rates for 3 hours. Just pick one of the major, reputable online banks and open the account. It takes about 5 minutes of typing in your basic information. Once the account is open, I want you to set up an automated, recurring transfer for exactly $5. Not $50, not $500. $5 scheduled to transfer on the exact day you get paid. If $5 feels too high, make it $2. The mathematical amount literally does not matter. You are not trying to get rich off this specific transfer. You are trying to prove to your brain that you can execute the system. After you set up that tiny, automatic transfer, you are going to close the browser. Do not download the banking app onto your phone. Do not save the login password in your browser settings. You are intentionally creating that wall of friction we talked about earlier. You are making the account invisible and annoying to access. You are officially hiding your own money from yourself. When that first payday rolls around, and you see that $5 transfer trigger automatically, something incredible is going to happen in your brain. It will not be a massive financial shift, but it will be a monumental psychological shift. You will look at your main account and realize that you paid yourself first. You successfully forced the system to work for you, entirely in the background, without needing a single drop of willpower. That $5 transfer is the absolute ultimate proof of concept. It proves that you are no longer just floating down the river hoping you don't hit the rocks. It proves you have agency. And once your brain accepts that the system actually works, you will naturally start looking for ways to turn that $5 into $20, and then into $50. You start small to break the paralysis, and you let the automated system pull you forward into the future. I want to take a step back and look at the bigger picture of what you are actually building. You are not just accumulating numbers on a digital screen. You are constructing a life that is entirely bulletproof. When you play this financial game in single-player mode, the journey is undeniably harder. You carry more weight, you face more systemic obstacles, and you pay a massive premium just to exist. But because of that sheer struggle, the final victory is infinitely sweeter and far more secure. Think back to that random Tuesday evening we talked about at the very beginning of this script. Think about that terrifying, isolating moment when you stared at that $800 repair bill and realized there was absolutely no one to call for a bailout. I want you to imagine exactly what that exact same moment looks like 5 years from now, after you have fully committed to the Fortress of One and let your automated systems run. In 5 years, you will still get that annoying email from the mechanic. The car will still break down, or the medical bill will still arrive in the mail. But your physical and emotional reaction will be entirely different. Your heart rate will not spike. You will not break into a cold sweat. You will not frantically check your calendar to see when the next payday lands. You will just let out a slightly annoyed sigh, transfer the money from your titanium buffer, and go right back to eating your dinner. The catastrophic emergency will have been permanently downgraded to a mild inconvenience. That transformation is what true wealth actually looks like for someone walking this path alone. The internet will constantly try to convince you that wealth is about buying luxury cars, wearing designer clothes, or taking aesthetic vacations to show off on social media. But when you have no family safety net, wealth is not about buying luxury at all. Wealth is about buying absolute, unshakable freedom from fear. More importantly, building this wealth buys you the ultimate human superpower. It buys you the ability to say the word no. When you have zero money and no backup plan, you are fundamentally forced to say yes to everything. You have to say yes to a toxic boss who treats you terribly because you desperately need the paycheck to make rent. You have to say yes to a horrible landlord who refuses to fix the plumbing because you cannot afford the security deposit to move somewhere else. You are held hostage by your circumstances. But when you have built your own automated safety net, that power dynamic completely flips. You can look a terrible boss in the eye and hand in your resignation, knowing you have 9 months of living expenses sitting comfortably in an online bank. You can walk away from a bad living situation or a bad relationship without staying just because you cannot afford to break the lease. You become entirely untouchable because you hold your own keys to your own survival. There is a quiet, powerful rebellion in doing this. Society expects you to either struggle endlessly in single-player mode or desperately rush into a partnership just to split the rent and survive the modern economy. By building this automated wealth system, you are entirely rejecting both of those narratives. You are proving that you can stand entirely on your own 2 feet and that you do not need to rely on anyone else to secure your future. The absolute best part of this financial fortress is its sheer permanence. When you build wealth entirely by yourself, using your own systems and your own patience, no one can ever take it away from you. Your security is not tied to a messy divorce. It is not tied to a better, fickle inheritance from a moody relative. It is not dependent on the mood of another human being at all. It is mathematically, structurally, and undeniably yours forever. So, I want to know about the specific obstacles you are facing in your own life right now. What is the absolute most frustrating part of the singles tax in your city, and what tiny 15-minute micro action are you going to take today to start building your own titanium buffer? Let me know in the comments below.